Hola muchachos, welcome here. I'm in the process of breastfeeding my fourth babe, and I wanted to do this video because firstly, of so many requests from you guys, but secondly, I wish I watched a video like this before I had my first. I wish that I watched this type of video like as soon as I found out I was pregnant, because the more you know, I feel like, especially when it comes to breastfeeding, the better, because you really can't over prepare in this area. In today's video, I'm gonna go over everything, like literally, like how to breastfeed while standing, covering, pumping, the haka, things you can do to increase your milk supply. I'm gonna talk about mastitis because I've had it with every single one of my pregnancies. I just really want this to be like the breastfeeding Bible, something that you as a first-time mom can watch and feel a little more confident about your breastfeeding journey if that's what you decide to do. Or maybe you're just like me, third or fourth or maybe a fifth time mama who just kind of wants a little bit of a refresh. So I hope that this is very helpful to you. I'm going to be linking some things down below. Some links will be affiliate and then some are just the links. All the same, I hope you really enjoy this video, and let's go ahead and get started. So firstly, just a disclaimer, you do not have to breastfeed in order to be a good mama or give your baby everything your baby needs. Some mamas can breastfeed for literally years, and then some mamas can breastfeed for a day, and some mamas just never actually get the opportunity to for multiple different reasons. But I want this video to obviously be towards mamas who are desiring to breastfeed, but not single out mamas that can't or have chosen not to. But whatever you are giving or have been able to give your baby is a gift, because that's how your baby has grown and come to this point, and that is a gift and a blessing. So I'm not saying that if you don't breastfeed, you're doing it wrong. It's just for the mamas who have chosen to do so. That's why I have created this video. Quickly on me, I have been able to breastfeed all my kids for about 5 months. My 2 daughters were over it. They weren't really interested in breastfeeding. Well, my 2 daughters, my first and my third. And then my son was obsessed with breastfeeding, but he got teeth at a very young age and he sliced me open way too many times, and I just wasn't able to go forward with it. So about every single time, 5 months-ish, I switched over to formula just because that was best for me and my babies, for the sake of my body, for the sake of even my mental health, and then for the sake of my babies, because my daughters just really weren't hugely interested in breastfeeding past 5 months, and my milk supply did dry up. Looking back, these tips that I'm going to tell you guys about now would have really helped to stretch out that milk supply, but all the same, what has happened, and I am here now. So let's get started. Since there's an age gap between my third and my fourth child, I just had my fourth Molly, I kind of had to restart and start from scratch when it came to preparing for breastfeeding, because it had been a couple years since I had done that. Yes, my fourth child Molly is exclusively breastfed. She's only had breast milk, and my goal is always to breastfeed for a year. I've never reached that, but I actually have really high hopes for Molly, so we'll see. Preparing for breastfeeding. Literally just 3 steps to prepare you for breastfeeding. Number 1 is to find a comfy bra that has no underwire. I am not telling you to go buy a nursing bra. This guy is going to like full on hit our tree with his sports utility vehicle. I don't like nursing bras. It's not my thing. I will do a bra. My favorite are Knix. It's the Winged Woman bra, and it's very soft and supportive but pliable. So I can easily just pull the whole thing down, nurse my baby, and pull it back up. Find a comfy bra though now in your pregnancy. Get used to it, kind of break it in. You don't want to start breastfeeding with a brand new stinking bra. It's painful and uncomfortable. You want to break it in a little bit. Secondly, this was huge for me. A lot of mamas experience a lot of pain in their nipple area when they first start breastfeeding, because it is such a really raw area and it's very susceptible to anything such as pulling and friction and sucking, because it's that just light pink brown skin. Very soft, very sensitive, just that area. My mom told me to, before I was even like into my second trimester, check with your midwife because this is nipple stimulation. It could bring you into labor. It never happened for me, but it might for you, to roughen up my nipples. I would take a soft toothbrush and be in the bath and just go over them. Or I would have like a soft wet cloth in the bath or the shower and just go over them. I'm not scrubbing at them or anything, but I'm going over them to really encourage that area to be a little more rough and tough. So when I start breastfeeding, it's not like I have this really delicate area that's going to be sucked on and pulled, and it really does hurt if you do that, but it's a little bit more rough and tough and ready for a baby to latch. I've done this with all of my pregnancies, or in all my pregnancies coming up to breastfeeding, and when I start breastfeeding, I don't have nipple pain at all, and I also really work on having my child have a good latch, which I'll talk about later. That's a huge tip. Thirdly is, before you give birth, get yourself some breast pads. So I have 3 types of breast pads. Do you need 3? No, but with this being my 4th time around, I really wanted to have a little bit more of a luxurious breastfeeding experience. So the ones that I wear every day, these are bamboo. They're by Mama Melon. I have used her breastfeeding pads for all of my breastfeeding experiences. These are super thin. They're every day. I might have to change them once or twice, maybe in a day, if my milk supply is really high and I'm just leaking all over the place. I'll have to change them here and there, but I never leak through my bra or anything. It really holds a lot of liquid. In the beginning, I like to use these, and I still use them at nighttime. These are by the brand Curve. This is the overnight breastfeeding pad, and this is like your everyday one. This one is a little bit thicker. It kind of looks like you grew a bra size when you put this one in during the day. So in the first couple weeks when I was very engorged, we'll talk about that as well, I used this during the day and this at night because they are extremely absorbent, and I really needed these. Leakage is just going to happen, especially if you follow these tips, because you'll most likely have a really solid milk supply. But again, I will link these down below. This is the daytime, this is the nighttime, and then the one I'm wearing now is what I wear during the day, and then at nighttime I'll wear one of these depending on kind of my flow, because I feel like my flow at nighttime can get pretty intense. Moving on, let's talk about colostrum. So when I gave birth to my daughter Ivy, I had no clue about anything when it came to breastfeeding. Like, really, I didn't know what colostrum was. I remember going to the hospital later because Ivy had jaundice, and the nurse asked me if my milk had come in, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. What do you mean, has my milk come in? Like, I'm feeding my baby, so it must be there. It definitely wasn't there. It came the next day, and that was an experience. Anyway, so colostrum is what your body produces even before you give birth to your baby. I like, before baby comes, just in the shower, hand express just a little bit of colostrum. I find when I do that, it just encourages the colostrum to make more and more. Again, check with your midwife. Touching your nipples and stimulating your nipples for some ladies can bring them into labor. I have not experienced that, but maybe for some people, or for a lot of people. But colostrum is just a very thick, fatty, high nutrient, dense, packed milk. It's not a milk. It's like a condensed cream. It's really thick, it's golden in color, and your body really produces a teeny tiny amount of it. Such a small amount that you might think your baby isn't getting enough, when really your baby is. It's just such a teeny tiny amount, and they have really small stomachs at the beginning. So for the first maybe 2-3 days, your baby is living off of your colostrum. So your boobs aren't going to be really sore at this point because your milk hasn't come in. That happens around, for me personally, around day 4. Sometimes later into day 3, my milk will come in. So when your milk comes in, your boobs are huge. They're huge, they're hard, they're like rocks. And this is when a lot of mamas can experience pain, or it's uncomfortable, or having people come visit can be very difficult, because when your milk comes in, like, you're soaking shirts, you're soaking your baby, because it's just, honestly, it's squirting out of your boob like a water gun. Like, it's a lot of milk, a lot of pressure, and your body is just producing tons of this stuff. That is your milk coming in. Your boobs seriously feel like they're not even a part of you, like they don't look a part of you. This is when I would encourage you not to have visitors over for a couple days, because as a first-time mom, you're just trying to learn how to breastfeed and what to do with all this milk, and that's when pumping comes in. I really, really enjoy pumping. Pumping does a bunch of different things. Firstly, it encourages milk to come out of your breasts. This is what brings your big and gorgeous boobs relief. So I've never used an electric pump or anything. It's too many wires, it's too much. Like, I look at it and I have anxiety. I'm like, I could not do that. I use a manual pump and something that's called a Haka. So this is a manual pump. This is really convenient. So lots of the time you would put your baby on one of your boobs. Your baby's gonna be there. You're gonna hold your baby like this as they latch to your breast. And then you're gonna take a pump and then put it onto your other breast and just start going. So when your baby starts feeding on one side, on the other side, you're gonna feel this sensation that is called a letdown. That is when this milk just starts flowing because the other side is stimulated. So the other side is gonna start really producing milk, because usually you should breastfeed on both sides. I'll talk about that again in a little bit here, but you really want to just start pumping, because you're gonna soak through like a tea towel if you don't do so. So have your baby feed on one side, pump on the other side. I also encourage you, when your baby is not feeding, still pump. Take your thumb as well, and from your armpit, you can hold your pump in one hand. From your armpit, just push down and relieve some of this tension, because there's gonna be a lot of tension. Like, I will feel tension from here into my armpit, down towards my rib cage. So I really love pushing and massaging. That's also gonna help reduce mastitis. So you can pump with this. I'll link it down below. This is my sister's, but I borrowed her, so you can always borrow someone's. And then I have a Haka. This is so fantastic. It's that same kind of idea. Baby feeds on one side, put this on the other side, but this is more of a suction, so it feels less hands-on. So what it is, before you would put it to your boob, you're just gonna squeeze it to create a section, put it on your boob, and then release. And then you're just gonna see milk start flowing. As the milk fills up, you're gonna have to kind of resuction, because you're bringing some product down there and it's gonna open this. When you suction, you're pretty much suctioning it right onto your nipple, but make sure your nipple isn't squished. You wanna make sure your nipple is pointed down. So it might take a couple times to kind of get to that point. Even for me, it still does, but this is very nice as well. I honestly will use both, but now I'm using the Haka more, just because I'm getting a good feel for it and it's comfy and I can actually stick it on and be a little bit more hands off. I'm gonna tell you guys how to breastfeed in a little bit here, but if you're wondering what to do with all your beautiful breast milk that you just pumped, you can put it into a breast milk bag. I'll link these down below. They're by Medela, and you can get like 100 for like hardly anything. They're breast milk bags, so after you're done pumping, you would cut this open, date it, pour the milk in, seal it, and then you can freeze it. You can freeze it for donation, you can freeze it for later use for yourself, whatever you want. But it is very, very convenient to have a lot of beautiful breast milk, especially from early in your breastfeeding journey, because that's when it's golden and rich and gorgeous. Just to have it, especially if your kid gets sick, maybe later on, give them more of that creamy, fresh breast milk from when you were just like newly breastfeeding, because the nutrients in there are so intense. Also, when you are first breastfeeding, like your milk first comes in, the color is very golden in your milk. As time goes on, it gets very white, and that's just your body adjusting the way that its milk is being made and produced. The more golden, the more nutrient dense and fatty it is, because that's what your newborn really needs in the beginning. And then over time, it's just like that hydration and good vitamins and such that will keep them going until they have solids. I'm gonna show you guys how to breastfeed. Okay, I have little Molly here. Something I recommend is a breastfeeding pillow. This one is by BB Hug Me. It's more of a sausage versus like a U shape. Both are great. I think if you're a first time mama, you might enjoy the U shape because it's easier to use. But this is Molly, and I'm just gonna give you guys an idea of how to breastfeed. So when you're breastfeeding, you don't want your baby tummy up. What you want is your baby curdled towards you. This is just best for their back and for their neck. And this means she's hungry. This means she's hungry. I'm just looking at my notes, but if she's going like this, she's looking for something. That's what this head bobbing is. So you want them against you. Also, you're gonna take this hand and you're gonna hold them here. So you're supporting their back, you're holding their head, and then with this hand, you're gonna hold your boob. Oh, she's working. You're gonna hold your boob, and to get them to open their mouths, if they don't open their mouths right away, you can take your nipples, squeeze a little bit of milk out, and you can rub it from the top of their nose and going down. That's gonna help them. Yeah, you can even see, she's opening her mouth. So that's gonna encourage them to open their mouths. As soon as they do that, take your boob and you go, huh, right away. Take your nipple and just put it right into their mouth. Their mouth should be nice and wide. You don't want their mouth to be really little and just kind of sucking on the nipple. If it's painful, it's not a good latch. Once they are latched, you can take your other arm, put it underneath, grab your haka. This girl is hungry. Grab your haka, go on the other side, and that's pretty much how to kind of breastfeed with your hands and such. You can see this pillow is nice because it just brings her up higher, so I'm not slouching. I have a nice posture. Here, we are totally gonna breastfeed you while I'm here. This little arm just will either tuck under here or it can wrap around your body. But you see the breastfeeding pillow really supports her, my arm supports her, and then I can move and adjust things a little bit. There you go, Molly. If it's painful, it's not a good latch. Don't feel bad about taking your baby away from your breast and trying again. If you're wondering if they're getting milk, you should be able to hear that swallowing sound. Also, something I'm doing this time around that I never did previous times was making sure I'm feeding on both sides. I always felt like I got to a point where my milk got really low and I would only feed on one side per feeding, and that wasn't good because in my head I was like, I'm storing up more milk. In actual fact, my body is going, oh, you don't need that much, and it'll stop producing. So I like to feed on both sides. Having the haka or a pump is nice also because as she feeds on this side, if I wanted to, I could put it on this side, and then I'm tricking my brain into thinking I have two babies on my breasts, which produces even more milk. And I know when you're engorged, the last thing you want, like when your milk first comes in, is to have so much milk. You're thinking, oh, I don't want to produce more milk, but it will start to figure itself out. The engorging period is your body figuring out how much milk you need to have. And then in about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, your body will start to find that balance and only produce so much milk. And you want it to be pretty high. Having baby on one side, haka on the other side, and then switch is good for stimulation and just making sure you are giving your baby as much milk and you have a really good supply. I've never had so much breast milk and such a good supply in my whole life, and I think it's just because I'm really making sure both breasts are fully fed from and stimulated every single time I feed. Now there are different breastfeeding positions. I always encourage people to try this one first because it's really comfortable for baby and for me, but there's positions such as they can sit more up, you can do the football hold, you can lay on your side and feed. There's a ton of different positions that you can find. I'll find a link to something really good, like an article, and put it down below because a lot of babies may not like feeding in this position. I've had one that liked to feed sitting on my lap, sitting upwards because of really bad reflex, and that was really nice. I did enjoy that and it was quite cute. In preparation for this video, a lot of you guys on Instagram, when I asked, do you want to see anything? A lot of you guys were asking how I stand and feed at the same time. It's quite simple. It's the same, hello, it's the same way that you do sitting down with your arm underneath and then the other arm holding your breast. This arm is more than capable of supporting baby while the other one helps to put the breast into baby's mouth. Next, let's talk about mastitis. So when you're really engorged, and it's usually in the first month or two of you breastfeeding, it's clogged milk ducts. If you suddenly notice your boobs are so sore, you can't take it any longer, you're in tears while you breastfeed, but maybe it's just on one boob or in a specific part of the boob, you probably have mastitis. I've had mastitis with all of my kids, and it's always in the first month when the milk supply is just really high. There's 4 things you can do. The first one, get into a hot bath, like a hot bath with some Epsom salts. Don't do like any like body washes, just some Epsom salts. It's gonna clean that area. Hey, oh, she's still hungry. Get into a hot bath, go on all 4s and let your boobs hang down in your hot bath. Take your hand and just start massaging, pull forward. You want gravity in that hot water to pull down and release. Sometimes this will happen for me immediately and I can feel like that pain just gone, and sometimes it can take a few days of doing this. That's my main thing. That's huge. A hot bean bag, I do that. I will wrap my boob in, like, I have a longer hot bean bag and I'll wrap my boob in it and just watch all that milk just like flood out. That feels really, really good. And then also cabbage leaves. I've done this a few times and it does bring relief. Some people use garlic, but whenever I've done that, my kids are like, your boobs smell gross. Leave me alone. But you can do cabbage leaves. But I firstly recommend a hot bath with Epsom salts and just massaging that boob, and not just for a few minutes. Like, give yourself half an hour, 45 minutes of just purely massaging that out. And then I know it's hard, but continue to breastfeed. Make sure it's a good latch so everything can just really flow out. It's quite a painful time, but you want to really make sure you're doing everything you can to release and get rid of it, because if you don't, it can lead to an infection. So if you're really concerned, talk to your doctor or your midwife, but those are just some at-home remedies that have always worked for me. I'm going to talk about how to increase your milk supply, or at least what's worked for me, but while I'm here, let's just talk about covering up. Some mamas really don't enjoy covering up. It's easier for them to not cover up. I had a lot of people ask me questions. Why do I cover up? Do I cover up around here, around there? The reason I cover up is because I feel more comfortable when I'm covered up. I don't cover up at home around Kieran and the kids or anything, but if I'm out in public, I do personally like to be covered up. The reason for that is because I just don't want other people looking at my boobs. I dress more modestly because it makes me feel more comfortable. I just personally dress in a way that's a lot more covered up, and then I do so in my breastfeeding. It's a me and my child thing. It's between me and my child, and I feel like when I'm covered up in public, it just houses that a little bit more, or like harnesses the idea of it's just between me and her. I have a breastfeeding cover by Fax and Fawn and Fax, something, and I'll link it down below. But I really enjoy having a cover because, especially as a first-time mama, I was able to make mistakes and try things out and test things out with breastfeeding in public and not feel like everyone was watching me and things were going insane and milk was flying all over the place. It was just like a little more concealed, and I enjoyed it. And the nursing cover that I have is just like a half cape, and then it has some wiring that gives it a little bit of a tent quality, I guess, to it. So it's not like it's flat against you and baby, but it's a little more open, and I enjoy that. Also, just quickly, how do you know your baby is done? Your baby will pull away from your breast and be like, I'm done. You're probably hungry again because you just like projectile barfed everywhere. Some nice little spit up. Yeah, nice little spit up. Okay. Anyway, breastfeeding just feels very intimate to me, so I do like to be covered up. It's just personal preference. And lastly, that was an awesome burp. Good job, little spit up. Yay. I am very proud of you. Lastly, let's talk about keeping your milk supply up, keeping not just a good supply, but a high milk supply. So these are the things that work for me. When it comes to food, I've never had oatmeal work for me before in any of my other pregnancies, but this time around, eating a big bowl of oatmeal cookies, oatmeal bars, granola, whatever, really helps with my milk supply, as well as flax, any type of yeasty things, breads, carbs, rice, pasta, all those things just really encourage a beautiful milk supply. I have some friends where if they eat a ton of red meat, their milk supply goes up. So I feel like everyone is different, but I think specifically oatmeal, brewer's yeast, a lot of ladies will drink like a dark beer. That depends on how comfortable you are with that. I'll find that just a little bit of dark beer for myself is great and really does encourage a good milk supply. And my midwife said it's more than okay to do so. All those things daily will really help. I also have, hold on, this. It is by Rumina Naturals. If I'm going to tell you you need anything for a higher milk supply, it's this. It's an herbal tincture to naturally boost breast milk production. It's natural and organic, and it says a proprietary blend of nature's most effective herbs to safely boost breast milk production. This tastes absolutely disgusting, but I will use it whenever I just feel like my milk supply needs a kick in the butt. This is beautiful. I feel like they sent this to me forever ago, and I still have like a ton in here, and it works very, very well. Also in the evening, while we're doing kind of like our evening routine, I have a glass of mother's milk tea, fenugreek and fennel. I really like the taste of this, and I do think it does boost my milk supply at nighttime. If I don't have this, I notice my milk supply kind of like waxes and wanes at night, but if I have this, I'm pretty certain that I'm gonna have a good milk supply at night, which will help her sleep better and have like a more full belly. Also, just hydrating yourself, tons and tons of water, staying away from a lot of more pepperminty type of things. I used to have peppermint tea all the time, but it really does make my milk supply drop. So I don't have peppermint tea while I'm breastfeeding for that reason. Next is feeding on demand, even when your milk supply is low. So with Ivy, I was on a pretty intense schedule with her, and I didn't like it. And from that point on, I decided I would never schedule any of my babies again because my milk supply was dropping. I was frustrated. She wouldn't feed when she was supposed to. Our schedule was not helpful, and I just found that having a routine with babies at such a young age, it just didn't work for me, and my milk supply dropped very quickly. I find that sporadic feeding on demand, when you just want your baby to eat, your baby's crying a lot and you're going, I bet you if I just fed my baby for like half an hour, my baby would sleep for 2 hours. You know, like that feeding on demand is really convenient. I find that all my kids who have been fed on demand thrive. I've experienced a fuller milk supply, especially this time around. I feed her all the time, sometimes constantly, and it has encouraged a beautiful high milk supply that I'm just oh so thankful for. So some people do love the schedule, but for myself, noticing my milk supply dropping, noticing my mood just being like horrible because I'm having anxiety and frustration over the fact that we're trying to follow this schedule and so far we can't. Just a bunch of different things. The schedule life didn't work for us. On-demand feeding works great for the first, honestly, like 3-4 months for me. And they develop their own special routine and they start sleeping through the night beautifully. So that's kind of what I have done, especially this time around, to encourage a higher milk supply. And dang, it's been really good. She's all smiley. She loves talking about breastfeeding, and I love talking about breastfeeding. Thank you guys for being here and watching this video. I hope it was just helpful, that type of like breastfeeding 101. All the best to you, and I will see you guys in my next video. Yes. Just gotta stretch a little bit. Okay, bye guys.